Okay. A beautiful valley of gentle, peace-loving people. Does this seem like the setting for a great adventure novel? Probably not. I'm Rob Jewell, and I'm going to tell you about a great adventure novel that does begin this way. It's called The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I think everyone should read The Hobbit because it has detailed characters, unique creatures, and comedy thrown in for fun. Let's start off with characters. The main character is Bilbo Baggins. He's a hobbit, which are about the size of an 8-year-old. They enjoy parties, eating, and relaxing afternoons smoking pipes. Definitely not your typical adventure hero, but Bilbo is not your typical hobbit. Gandalf, the ancient wizard, seeks out Bilbo in his search for an evil dragon. Gandalf is a few hundred years old and has a gray cloak and hat and always carries his gnarled walking stick. He coordinates with this group because a dragon has terrorized the populace of the Lonely Mountain for much too long. Other than Bilbo and Gandalf, the others in this group are all dwarves. These 13 are known in the book as Thorn and Company. It was their ancestors who were terrorized in the Lonely Mountain, so they are highly motivated to get back the treasure and kill the dragon. Dwarves are strong and burly. They carry axes and are slightly larger than hobbits, and they are quite mobile. There are a few side characters in this book, but I will only talk about the one, and which is probably the most interesting. The creature called Gollum. Gollum used to be a hobbit, but was corrupted by a ring that turns the wearer invisible while turning his soul to darkness. Bilbo finds him in an underground cave when separated from the rest of the group. You might say that Gollum has gone insane from living for so many years by himself, but it is the ring that has corrupted him. The final character to mention is the dragon himself, Smaug. Smaug is giant and boastful and believes himself to be invincible. Bilbo talks to him while wearing the ring, so he cannot be seen. And while doing so, Smaug boasts of his wealth and impenetrable armor. Over the years, his greed has led to piles of gold and treasure in his lair in the Lonely Mountain. On this adventure, Tolkien has them encounter unique creatures to create a bond between the group and to entertain the reader. For example, in Mirkwood, they're captured by talking spiders. These are not your normal spiders. They're as big as a man and have enormous pincers. I won't tell you how they outwit the spiders, but only that Bilbo has to use his intelligence. Tolkien also uses goblins throughout the story. These evil beings also want the dragon's hoard and do not like the fact that this band is crossing through their territory. The band never knows when the goblins are following, so they're always on their guard. This adds to the story's suspense. Finally, we have the group of 3 trolls who are quite dim-witted, yet are smart enough to capture Thorn and Company. They wander the boundaries of Mirkwood, never agreeing on a course of action, which always leads to blows. This brings me to the last point I'm going to make so that you will read this book. The humor that Tolkien sprinkles throughout. There are two sorts of humor used: personality humor and situational humor. The personalities Tolkien gives characters leads readers to chuckle and enjoyment. The trolls are a perfect example. He could have made them creepy trolls that you would have nightmares about, but instead he gave them humorous personalities that readers can laugh at. Bilbo also has a funny side. He constantly complains of being hungry, wanting to go home, sort of like a toddler. Tolkien puts in a few funny situations, like when Bilbo meets Gollum. Instead of having them fight, Tolkien has them test each other with a riddle game. Some of the riddles and some of the answers are quite funny. Even at the end of the story, his welcome home is not what you'd expect and quite funny. So, should you read The Hobbit? The answer to that is yes. The reasons being, it is an unforgettable story with creatures, characters, and humor you will laugh at for weeks afterwards.
did you happen to choose this?
Well, I chose this right after I read The Lord of the Rings. I had read The Hobbit long before I read The Lord of the Rings. They're really long books. And so I decided that because it is such an intriguing book that I would do this and hope to get a state fair trip for it.
So what did you have to do for research for your project?
Well, I had to read the book, number one, which I had already done. And so I could remember a lot of things, and I also had to look online for the pictures and find out where they came from. And not a lot of that.
So when you were actually doing the PowerPoint presentation, putting that together, did you have to do some research into how to use the program?
Yes. We had to mess around with it a little bit and find out which things. Also, my dad there helped me a bit. He's really good with computer and software and things.
Okay.
What else did you learn outside of this being really funny and great characters and creatures, unforgettable story?
I learned that. What do you mean by that question?
What did you learn about yourself, maybe?
What did I learn about myself?
Or the process of developing the project?
I learned that it is a lot more complicated the more complex the project you're doing, the more complicated or like the pictures. I had to search a good deal to find the pictures, and the more complicated your subject, the harder it is to get resources.
Your project seemed really well planned. Was that hard for you to come up with the reasons to read the book, or how to incorporate that into a presentation?
So, from the whole thing, I basically knew the baselines of the things I was going to put in, but it was sort of hard to put in what order to put it in. And I decided on the characters, creatures, and humor, because the humor I did with the things I had the most knowledge of first, and then gradually I didn't have as much knowledge for the humor. I couldn't really remember much of the humor, and I could remember some of the creatures, but not all of them. So I didn't put all the creatures in the book in the presentation.
How much did you practice your presentation before?
I practiced it a fairly good deal a few weeks before, maybe a week and a half, somewhere around there. That's when I finished it and started practicing it.
Did you run into any problems while you were doing the project, something that was unexpected that you had to work around?
Well, I suppose you could say that an unexpected problem might have been the how to, because for the last few years I have been having things come up. I couldn't remember how to do that, so we had to come around, and we couldn't find it until we went into animations and then did custom animation, and then you could come up and have it fly in or peek in or like come in from two sides, and it could be categorized as that.
Very nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.